The film is a look at a year in the life of four Sasquatches. The film opens in a forest where four Sasquatches live together. There is a young male, a female, a small one called the child, and a large one called the alpha. They go about their daily routines of finding food and beating the sides of trees in unison. They eat tree leaves and then, like monkeys, find and consume lice from each other's bodies.
Hold on a moment. Everyone is talking about seeing Sasquatch, and some even show evidence that these creatures really exist. In folklore, it has been mentioned many times, and numerous films have been made about it as well. But have any of you ever actually seen such a bastard creature anywhere?
In springtime, which is usually the mating season for animals, the alpha is mating with female. The male and child also watch as the alpha and female have sex. During the day, the Sasquatches are busy gathering tree branches and searching for food for consumption. The child forms a connection with a porcupine, which mimics the child's movements. Then they all gathered the tree branches in one corner, looked at each other, and stared up at the sky. Then at night, they all rest and gaze at the sky. The alpha does something strange and disgusting. He puts his hand in his nose and eats the contents. The next day, they resume exploring and searching for food in the forest. The alpha finds some mushrooms among the trees. They then sit by the creek and drink some water. Later at the creek, the child finds a turtle and starts trying to play with it. He starts to kiss it until the turtle bites his tongue and latches on. The female helps get the turtle off the child's tongue before the male and alpha use the turtle like a telephone, and the alpha ends up chucking the turtle into the trees. In another scene, the female finds a bird's nest filled with eggs, but the alpha cunningly takes it from her. The female is pregnant with the alpha's child, and then the child, while sitting near the female, had her picking and eating the lice from his body. He suddenly suckles on her breast while she is lactating. In the next scene, the female is sitting by a tree, rubbing her private part and sniffing her hand repeatedly. She is secretly observed by the alpha, who becomes sexually aroused. The alpha later attempts to sexually engage the female again, but she aggressively rejects his advances. In the next scene, all the Sasquatches are running around and playing, while the alpha sits in a corner sniffing and licking a stinky weasel. The four come across various types of things that they eat, such as mushrooms and berries. The alpha finds another bush with berries that have a strong taste, but he refuses to share with the other Sasquatches. After distancing himself from everyone, the alpha eventually gets tired and falls asleep in a corner. We see his big feet, and it's no wonder these creatures are called Bigfoot. When he wakes up, he catches a glimpse of the female's butt and becomes sexually aroused again and runs towards her. He then attempts to rape the female, but she fights him off. Afterward, the alpha noticed a hole in a piece of wood that was part of the structure created by his friends. Feeling intensely aroused, he attempted to penetrate the wood, which ended up damaging their structure as well. The three yell at the alpha and banish him into the woods.
Another point about the alpha in any species is that they have a strong desire to mate with females as much as possible to increase their own lineage. The reason why this alpha figure in the story is so aggressive and horny in their pursuits is due to this instinctual drive to reproduce and ensure the growth of their offspring.
The alpha wanders alone until he eats a large red mushroom, which causes him to trip out before he starts vomiting. He then comes across a cave with a cougar and attempts to pull it out. To rape it, I think this action might have some interesting consequences. They spent the night together without the alpha, and later, while wandering alone in the forest, the child came across the alpha's lifeless body and informed the others. The other three Sasquatches later come by the woods and find the cougar feeding off the dead alpha's innards. The three start throwing rocks at the cougar, but it ends up leaving after taking its fill. The three take the alpha's body and bury it in the dirt. They then have a small funeral procession of sorts before walking together to a cliffside and watching the sunset. Summer. As summer arrives, the Sasquatches continue their daily activities, including knocking on trees. They then reach a river where they all start throwing stones into the water. Strangely, they begin catching fish from the water, tearing open their bellies and consuming their blood, essentially wasting the fish. Later, we see the female interacting and playing with various animals, including a snake. She then touches her genitalia and smells her hand. Subsequently, she performs this action in front of the male and the child, bringing her hand close to their noses for them to smell as well. Then, the female eats a snail while the male embraces the trees, appearing overly joyful. In the next scene, the female is leaning against a tree, playfully engaging in sexual displays. The male spots her from a distance and becomes sexually interested. He approaches her with some leaves as a gift and gestures for her to engage in mating. However, he is met with a strong reaction from the female, prompting him to flee. It seems that the reason for her reluctance is solely due to her pregnancy. The male, female, and child continue their routines before coming upon several trees with red X's painted on them. The female is also growing more far along in her pregnancy. The three walk further into the woods until they come across a paved road. They see that it appears endless, filling them with dread and rage. The three then proceed to urinate and defecate all over the road in angered defiance, with the female even squirting her breast milk out. The three stop at a lake. Then the male became interested in a large piece of wood that had fallen into the water and began to examine it. Meanwhile, the female, who was in the later stages of her pregnancy, sat in a corner, while the child stood a bit further away. The male walks along a downed tree on the water. The tree then starts to roll over, and the male falls into the water with his feet stuck under the tree. As the tree starts to roll further on top of the male, the female and child attempt to roll it off of him. Unfortunately, the tree is too heavy, and the male remains pinned underwater until he drowns. Later, while the squirrels were asleep, they were awakened by the sound of crows eating the remains of the male. To prevent the desecration of their deceased friend's body, the child and the female began throwing stones at the crows to make them stop. They then took the body and buried it in a designated spot. Afterward, during the ceremony, the female embraced the child, the last remaining member of her family, and they shared a moment of empathy together. Fall. The female and child continue moving forward until they reach a campsite. They start trashing the place and eating the candy they find there, and the female finds a music player. The song she plays moves her to tears, but she begins to angrily throw the device around. They completely ruin that camp, and then the female finds a pocket mirror which allows her to see her ugly face. At the same time, she is astonished with surprise. At that moment, the child throws a frisbee at the female, but when it hits her, her water breaks. The child sets up an area for the female to give birth, and she strangely prepared herself for childbirth. In a matter of minutes, she gives birth to a healthy, hairy Sasquatch baby. Moments later, the cougar reappears. The female cuts the umbilical cord with her teeth and tosses the placenta to the cougar for it to eat, giving her and the child and baby a chance to get away. Once they find a safe spot, the female nurses the baby and also the child. Winter. With the arrival of winter, the responsibility of caring for the baby became more important than ever for the female. On her way, she found a rooster. Then she saw an animal trap with the bones of a creature inside it. When she noticed that the child was about to place the rooster in the trap to kill it, she intervened and didn't let him do that. After sleeping, the female wakes up to find the baby, with his eyes appearing lifeless and his body is still. The female frantically shakes the baby and taps on his chest until he vomits and begins breathing again. The female and child later witness the smoke from a wildfire in the distance. Although clearly despaired, they walk with the baby further away from the fire. They end up in a town where they find a giant Bigfoot statue in front of a museum, believing it to be real and trying to communicate with it through grunts. The female and child simply stand in front of the building while the child beats two stones together before the film cuts to black.
Just before you close the video, I want to say that if the next version of this movie is made, these two Sasquatches will probably show up in the city and engage in their mischief and confrontations with people. Who knows? Maybe they'll never make this film. I hope you enjoyed watching the summary of this movie.